What's up, everybody? Nate here. So over the last 2 years or so, work culture in the United States has completely shifted, leading around 70 million people to voluntarily quit their jobs in 2021 alone. But now in 2022, things seem to be shifting again. Massive quits have started to subside across the country, and it even looks like many workers now regret quitting their jobs last year. And with all of this happening, many investors and experts are wondering if the Great Resignation has finally reached its peak, or if we are about to head into a Great Resignation 2.0. Well, I think there's a much bigger change that's coming to the United States and its job market in 2022. And today we're going to be breaking down everything that's going on and what could be coming in the future. But before I get into all of that, do me a quick favor and hit smash or destroy that thumbs up button below and ring that notification bell too. Both of those two things are completely free, and they help to show me that you like this video and that you want to see even more just like it. Thank you so much for doing that. And now let's talk all about the Great Resignation and the future of work in the United States. So for the last few years, millions of Americans have been quitting their jobs. Now this whole Great Resignation thing pretty much started back when the pandemic first began. Businesses were closed down for several months in 2020, and nobody really knew what was coming next. Now we all know that the federal government ended up spending trillions of dollars in order to provide American citizens the stimulus they needed to get out of the pandemic and not working for several months. But it also provided a lot of Americans time. There were so many people who could now think about the things that they were doing in everyday life, and a lot of them decided they really hated their job. So that kind of was the first start. You had many Americans kind of having this psychological change in the way that they view and interact with work. But then there was also the many employees who stayed employed during the pandemic. Throughout this time, work culture essentially completely flipped on its side. Many office workers had to start working from home. Remote work was pretty common, and many employees in general cut their commute entirely. This is really difficult for a lot of corporations in the United States because everything that they knew about work and team building and their business was completely changing basically overnight. This started to really benefit workers because, like I said, many of them didn't really like to go to the office anyway, and many of them enjoyed working from home. Companies and businesses all throughout the United States were forced to change, but this only lasted for around a year. By mid-2021, when vaccines started to roll out and the pandemic started to slowly disappear in the United States, many businesses and employees started to change their ideas about work again. It was pretty clear by the summer of 2021 that the pandemic was taking a back seat in our economy. This meant that businesses and companies could start readopting their old practices, bringing people back to work. But this has been a really complicated issue because many employees work far away from the office now. They were hired in on a remote-only model, and some of them live in other states. They're not able to commute or go back to the office. This is really when the Great Resignation started to take off, and we started to see millions upon millions of Americans voluntarily quitting their jobs. The reason they're quitting their jobs is because by mid-2021, some companies were doing the right things and allowing that flexibility for their workers. Other companies were forcing their old ways onto new and existing employees. To summarize, some companies wanted to go back to the way things were, and other companies understand things have changed with time, and now they need to adapt with what's going on today, which has been really difficult for your big corporations. These big corporations have to adopt a streamlined model that all employees have to follow. They can't exactly pick favorites between one employee and another. This has been the big push and pull fight during the Great Resignation. Picking favorites. Some companies are allowing some workers to work from home and have that same flexibility that they saw during the pandemic, but they're forcing other employees to come back into the office. I want to be clear here. Some employees do want to come back to the office. They like that office feel and that office culture. But many employees simply can't or don't want to return to the office. This has been a big moment of contention during the Great Resignation. So millions of Americans have decided to quit their jobs, but don't get me wrong, it's not just the work from home model that employees are upset about. There is a lot of things affecting our workforce right now. For instance, employees are really unhappy with the pay and benefits that they're receiving. In short, they think they should be getting a lot more, and right now that is a completely understandable argument considering inflation continues to set new record highs. In fact, in March of 2022, inflation hit a near over 40-year high of around 8.5%. That means that the cost of everything from living to your basic products is going up. Americans now have to make more money in order to buy all of the same things. And to be completely fair, employers have increased their wages and salaries over the last year or so. Some estimates say that it's been around a 5 to 6% wage increase for many employees. However, one thing should strike you as strange about that, because inflation is 8.5%, which means on average, everything has increased by around 8.5%, but wages have only gone up by at most 6%. Meaning most employees in the United States are actually still losing money even though they got a raise. That has not been enough, so businesses have been stepping up even more to give employees pay. What's starting to happen right now in 2022 is that many businesses are offering big cash bonuses for employees to sign on. And they're offering big quarterly bonuses if those said employees start making really huge strides in their company. But what I'm seeing the most between companies and corporations all throughout the United States is one big problem. While offering those big bonuses and cash sign-ons is a really good plus for future employees, it doesn't really do much to actually keep those employees. This is why we're starting to see millions of Americans now again quit their jobs in 2022. They quit in 2021 and found a better job that offered better pay. However, the work culture of that corporation and business still didn't fit their needs. I think what Americans value the most is their time and their freedom and the flexibility that they can have with certain jobs. Everybody wants to get paid more, but at the end of the day, if you work way too much and you can never enjoy your money, then all of that pay doesn't really matter. So now we're starting to see a new push and pull between companies and their employees. Employees want that flexibility. They don't want toxic work culture, and they want to be able to have their freedom and time. A wage increase is nice, and they want that too, don't get me wrong, but they really want the culture of the place that they work for to be something they admire and they take pride in. Remember what I said about when the pandemic first started? Millions of Americans now had a lot of time, and because the federal government was giving them thousands of dollars in unemployment and stimulus checks, a lot of them didn't have to work, and they spent this time learning, going on YouTube, and also entertaining themselves. Many Americans for the first time realized that there is way more to life than just your 9 to 5. And they loved it. Especially my generation of millennials, we were taught our entire lives that you have to go to school and get really good grades and then get the job of your dreams and then work really hard and eventually you can retire. That mindset taught us that we had to work hard for everything. Anything that we wanted in life, we had to work hard for. But the problem is we weren't really enjoying life. We were just kind of punching the card every single time we met something new. We never slowed down, and generations before us did the exact same thing. However, during the pandemic, people were off of work and they were able to survive, and that really got them thinking, what do I really want in life? Many people are now searching for a career, and they're putting their passion before a paycheck. So with all of that said, what exactly is coming next for the Great Resignation in the United States? Has it reached its peak, or is it simply just evolving? I think you're going to continue to see millions of Americans quit their jobs in 2022. I think it's going to slow down as more and more companies realize that they need to change their culture. Part of the reason why we've seen so many people quit in the United States is that our workforce has all of the advantages. Companies are looking for people and they're desperate. They're starting to get really creative about how they bring people in. I've seen companies offer free education and training for months to start a job. Jobs that you traditionally would need college degrees for. With that said, a lot of companies are dropping the requirement to have a college degree altogether. That could completely shift work in the United States as we know it, because like I said, my generation was told you had to go to college in order to be successful. The next generation might be told that you don't need that college degree in order to have a successful life. Not only that, but they're increasing their pay. And a lot of companies over the last 2 years have added positions in order to take some of the pressure off of their current employees. I mean, it is not uncommon for a lot of these corporations to put way too much work and tasks on one person, when in reality, all of that work that one person is doing should be done by a team of 3 or 4 people. Companies are starting to realize this, and they're hiring different workers in order to take some of that workload. The problem is the process has been extremely slow. Many of your legacy corporations that have been around for 50 to 100 years are taking a very long time to understand what workers and the labor force wants right now. Instead, they're just kind of dangling a carrot in front of prospective employees and saying, hey, here's an extra $500 if you take our job right now. That's great, and you're gonna get a lot of employees to accept that job offer, but you're not gonna be able to keep them for the long term. That is on the company. If workers are leaving, then they're leaving for a reason. You gotta think about it. It's a huge risk for someone to leave their job. In 2020 and in 2021, Americans were able to get all of this stimulus that backed them up in an emergency savings account, so if they wanted to quit their job later, they could do that. Many of them planned on this path, so they actually saved a bunch of this stimulus money instead of going out and spending it, so that way they had something to protect them when they quit their job. All of that stimulus in the United States is now ending, so people have to go out and get a job again, and they have to stay at it and save their money if they want to quit. But these hiring bonuses are basically just replacing the stimulus of before. Now you're getting that extra $500 to $1,000 in order to quit, and that might mean having a 1-month savings account already built into your new job. Now the other thing that we have to consider is on the corporation side. So companies and corporations have been hiring a lot more workers. In fact, in the United States, there's around 11 million current job openings. They are looking for people, and because the workforce has all of the advantages and is really strong, people feel more inclined to quit their job. They know that opportunities are out there, and they're willing to do whatever it takes in order to get them. But these opportunities are not going to last forever, because for companies and corporations, they feel the effects of inflation too. And they also feel the effects of our economy changing. So as inflation goes up, companies are now going to have to pay more for all of their goods and services. They have to pay employees more. They have to open up new factories and locations in order to meet buyer demand all throughout the country. But everything in our economy exists in a delicate balance. If there isn't enough demand, meaning people aren't buying enough things, and that means there's going to be a lot less profits for companies. Lowering profits and revenue means that these companies who have hired all of these workers and are looking for new workers aren't going to be able to keep that much staff. They're going to have to lower their expectations, which means you could start to see unemployment rise in the United States because companies just don't have enough profits anymore. But in turn, you might start to see that job openings number slowly lower. And it's not lowering because people are getting more jobs. It's lowering because those jobs are disappearing. That is bad news for companies and our labor force, because it basically means that our job market is once again flipping. There is more people who are looking for jobs than jobs available, and that gives corporations and companies all of the leverage when hiring new people. They get to decide the company culture once again, and if you don't like that particular job, you don't have the advantage anymore to go on to the next opportunity. That might be the only job offer you get in a while. And if they don't want to work with you, then they'll simply pass on you and go to the next applicant. It's just that simple. Now that's a pretty extreme scenario, but what I think is more likely to happen is we're going to continue to see that delicate balance. I think companies are starting to prepare for the long haul here. They know that they need people, and the rise of automation hasn't completely taken over every industry yet. So they still need people, and as long as they need people, they're going to kind of work with new employees and existing ones on pay and benefits and workplace culture. It's not going to be completely across the board. You're still going to have companies that want to go back to the old ways, and those companies are going to start suffering. The ones that hang on, though, are going to be the companies that remain successful, and those are going to be the companies that people want to work for. Well, in that situation, it's kind of like a win-win for everybody. But this switch is going to take a very long time, and while it could mean the end of the Great Resignation, we are nowhere near that switch just yet. But now I want to hear from you on this issue. What do you think about the Great Resignation essentially reaching its peak in 2022? Do you think that companies are going to finally address the #1 concern of workers, their workplace culture, or do you think eventually companies will again take the advantage in the hiring process and future employees are gonna have to take what they can get? Whatever your thoughts are, leave a comment below before you go. But that is it for today's business and financial news breakdown. Thank you so much for watching, If you want to stay up to date with all of the top business and financial news from around the country, our team puts together a free daily newsletter, and you can subscribe to it by clicking the link in this corner right here. And if you want to stay up to date with me and everything else happening in the business and financial world, I'm putting out updates 7 days a week over here on this channel, and I've actually got another one ready for you right here, so be sure to check that out before you go. That is it for me, everybody. Be kind out there, and I'll see you all in the next one.